When you're homeschooling through high school, you naturally need to cover the basic subjects: reading, writing, math, science, history. But high school is also about including different electives to introduce new topics to your students. So today I'm going to take you through all of the electives my kids have done so far as we've homeschooled through high school. Hey guys, welcome back to My Practically Imperfect Life. If you're joining for the first time, welcome to my channel. My name is Abby and I'm a homeschooling mom of 2 high schoolers. And here on my channel, I take you along with us as we homeschool through high school, showing you all of the things that we're doing and learning along the way. So as I mentioned in the intro, I wanted to talk about high school electives today because that does constitute a big portion of what we do during the high school years with our students. Now, we've chosen electives several different ways. Some of them are interest-based. My kids have expressed interest in learning more about a topic, so I've either found curriculum to introduce that topic more in depth, or I've created curriculum for them to follow along. And then some of it is just to give them an introduction to lots of different topics. I want them to feel like they're graduating with a real well-rounded education, where they've at least got a basic understanding of different topics that they might come across later on in adulthood, or maybe it will spark an interest in studying something further when they go to college. And so we've really touched on lots of different subjects. Now, we did start earning high school credits as early as the 8th grade. So some of these courses they did do as an 8th grader, and then they've continued doing them. And while both of my kids have done a lot of overlapping subjects where one did one year and one did it the next year, there are several subjects where only one of them has done it, again, usually based on interest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the different electives that we've done, just briefly describe the curriculum and what our thoughts were on it. I'm not going to go too terribly in depth on each of these. If you want to see some of them more in depth, I do have a lot of them covered in my curriculum choice videos, and I will have that linked down below in the description box for you. But let's just dive right on in with the first elective. So these are in no particular order except in the order I wrote them down on a piece of paper to help remember them all. And the first one is a philosophy course. It's called History and Philosophy in the Western World. This curriculum comes from Seven Sisters Homeschool. It is one that my daughter is currently doing, so she's about halfway through the course. Now, this is a digital course, which means you get a PDF download for the textbook and a PDF download for the tests. My daughter does have a printed out version of it. I printed it out, put it in a binder for her, and it has reading selections for each lesson. There are questions at the end of each lesson, and then there are tests I can give her, and then it has what are called optional enrichment activities. So we don't assign every single enrichment activity. The course does explain how you can turn it into what they call like a college prep or an advanced or an honors course based on how many of those you choose to do. But of course, it's totally up to you what you would like to do. We've kind of picked and chosen which enrichment activities we'd like her to do based on kind of our thoughts on whether or not they look engaging or if they look like they're really going to add on to the curriculum. Now, this is a basic introduction to philosophy. You are not going to get like super deep dive information on philosophy or be a master in all things in philosophical thinking at the end of it, but it is meant to introduce a lot of different famous philosophers, different ways of thinking, and a little bit of the history. So she has so far covered things like Greece, Italy, the philosophers of those ages. She's learned about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, St. Augustine, St. Thomas. She's going to be getting into early church and Reformation philosophy, a little bit on, I believe, like the Romantic philosophers, and it'll just kind of take her through that in order of occurrence. And so far, she says it's been, well, she says it's okay. It's not her favorite course in the world, but it is enough that it's keeping her attention and keeping her engaged. I don't think she's going to study philosophy in college, but again, it's really great to see how these different philosophers thought and their ways of presenting different things. And I do like that it's taught from a Christian perspective. So a lot of the questions that she has to answer for the homework will ask her to kind of apply what she's read to different arguments in like apologetics, or to kind of dispute what a philosopher may have presented based on what she knows to be true. And I think it's just been really interesting in seeing how that's been like thought-provoking for her and reading her answers that she's come through. So we are giving her a full year credit for this particular course because it will take her the entire year to complete. But you could condense it down into one semester if you needed to. Our second elective is what we are calling food science in our homeschool. Now, technically, this is a full-on chemistry course. It's chemistry in the kitchen from Guest Hollow, and I have lots of videos about this particular course in my Guest Hollow playlist. It is designed originally to be a full chemistry course without the math component. Now, we have taken out some things from it and focused in more on reading about different types of reactions and why they happen, and particularly why they happen when it comes to cooking. And so it's been really fun for my kids, who both really enjoy being in the kitchen, to see why it is certain things happen in the kitchen the way they do based on chemistry principles. And so again, while we're not using it as a main chemistry unit, they are learning and reviewing chemistry concepts. My daughter completed chemistry last year, and my son is currently in chemistry this year. So it's just been really interesting to see how that has helped broaden their understanding of the things they've learned in their other course and see it in action. But it's been a really fun way to just spend some time all together in the kitchen working on these different projects, seeing what things work, what things don't work. They've done a lot of like recipe tweaking. My daughter is firmly convinced that one of the books has terrible recipes, and so she has tweaked every single one to try to make it better. And it's been really cool to see her experiments with that and how she's using, again, the principles that she's reading about in order to come up with new and creative recipes. So that's been a really fun course for us to do throughout this entire year so far. Another elective we've done is personal finance. We've actually done this a couple of different ways. When both my kids were in 8th grade, they did a high school course from Dave Ramsey called Foundations in Personal Finance. This is a really great introduction to personal finance. It's an all-online course that includes readings, videos, quizzes, it auto grades and everything for you. It took each of them about one semester to complete. And Dave Ramsey has a lot of really good solid principles when it comes to personal finance. I've personally read a lot of his books. I used to listen to his podcasts, and we've really tried to implement a lot of those into how we manage our household finances. So it was a really good introductory finance course for both of my kids. Now that course is still available, and along with another course that they did, which was a Foundation of Career Readiness course. So this course did a little bit of exploration into different types of career fields, understanding how to write a resume and a cover letter, and how to do an interview, and then just looking into some different topics to help them kind of figure out what type of career they might be interested in. Now, originally, they also had another course called Foundations in College Readiness, which was it was something like that, but it was how to graduate from college debt-free. So lots of strategies for saving for college, paying for college without taking out a bunch of student loans. Now, the last time I looked, that particular course was no longer available as a standalone course. I think there might be some places where you can still get it all bundled together, but I really hope that they bring that one back because that was a really great course. Now, my daughter is redoing or kind of moving further with personal finance this year because she's doing a combo course, again, from Guest Hollow. They have a course called Government Econ and Personal Finance, and it's a course that introduces like a lot of different literature and videos and different types of activities to cover multiple different subjects. So she gets her government credit, her econ credit, and she's getting a full personal finance credit as well. She has really enjoyed the books and the activities that have gone along with the personal finance there. So we're actually giving her like a personal finance 2 or advanced personal finance credit for that. And I really like that we're kind of revisiting this topic in her junior year. I think it would also be a great topic to have someone to do with her senior year because she's going to be on her own before too long. And it's just good to kind of go back over those principles that they learned all the way back in 8th grade and just, again, revisit them and kind of hone in on different things and be prepared for when they leave the house. So while I do think the Dave Ramsey courses are awesome, I highly recommend them, especially if you wait until they go on sale, because they can be quite pricey if they're not on sale, but they run specials multiple times during the year. But if you are also going to do a government and econ course with your homeschooler, the Guest Hollow course is fabulous. And again, it covers all 3 of those subjects in one course. A course we kind of pieced together this year for my son was a nutrition and fitness course. He is very interested in his physical health. He is at that stage where, you know, he wants to get really fit, and he's really looking at his diet, and he's really looking at his exercise routine. And so we wanted to really hone in on that interest and kind of create a course for him around it. So what I found was this nutrition science workbook set. It is a set of 6 workbooks, and it covers a balanced diet, water, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals, different fruits and vegetables. It's not incredibly in depth, but it does have a lot of good information. What you do is they read. There are questions right there in the workbook that they fill out the answers to. There are tests right there in the booklets you can pull out. There are quizzes in there as well. So it's all just compact in these 6 little workbooks. And then what we did is we added in a physical fitness component to that. So he did some training at our local YMCA and had to follow different workout routines through the trainer. And then throughout the year, he has continued to do different types of workouts, and then he logs those as part of his grade. And it is cool because he has, based on what he's learned, he's developed like a rotation of what he works on what days. We have a home gym set up, plus he has the Y membership, and so all of that works together to create that elective course for him. Now, each year we also do a Bible study elective with our teens, and while this includes our topical devotions we do from Daily Grace Co., these are books that cover a particular topic in depth for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. We also will pick a core topic to study for the entire year. Most recently, we finished up an Old Testament focus, and we used a book from Concordia Publishing House called God's Old Testament People. This was really a more historical focus on the Old Testament. Like, we weren't looking at the book of Psalms, we weren't looking at Proverbs, but we were looking, you know, from Genesis all the way through the end of the Old Testament, focusing in on different people, where things were happening, what was the context in which things were happening. When we were reading from one of the books of the prophets, what was going on at the time and why was it that they were called at that particular time. And so it took us quite a while to get through it. We read a good chunk of the Old Testament as a part of this program, and it brought up a lot of interesting discussion. I do like how the questions are arranged in the student books for this program, because it does try to tie in what you're reading in the Old Testament to parts of the New Testament and to situations in modern day life. And I like that. I like it when it kind of shows how these things all tie together. And so it was really interesting, and we spent a little over about a year and a half going through it. And I think that's just because we took our time with it. It's meant to be done in a year if you would like to, but we wanted to just make sure we really deep dove into the subject, and we will be getting ready to move into the Gospels here next. The next elective is another one that we did together as a group, and this was art history, and the course was called The Master and His Apprentices, a art history course from a Christian perspective. Now, we chose to buy the PDF version of this course, so the entire textbook, which was several hundred pages, came as a big giant PDF. There were student discussion questions that I was able to print off and have the kids kind of fill out sort of as notes as we were going through it. You could certainly have your student do the reading and then answer the questions independently. We just chose to do it more as a discussion. There were printable tests, and then there were different writing assignments. So it is a very thorough, in-depth art history course. It goes all the way back to the ancient Near East. That's kind of where the studies start. So there's a lot of discussion on statues and architecture and design initially, because that's really where most art was focused. And then you start to get into things like early painting styles, how different styles evolved, what was going on in different parts of the world at different times. You learn about a ton of famous artists from all around the world and all the different time periods, and it covers all of the big periods, everything from, the Renaissance, Baroque, Greek, Roman architecture, medieval art. I mean, it covered all of it. It was a really interesting course. If you have a student who likes art or architecture, this is a great course because it is very in-depth in all of those different topics. The textbook is beautiful. It has tons of examples of all of these different works. I really wish we would have just bought the textbook though, because, you know, it's one thing to kind of look at it on a computer screen and try to share it on a computer screen, but it would have been really lovely to have the printed textbook and be able to like lay that out and just see those full color photos laid out in front of us. It was just a cost thing. It's so much cheaper to get the PDF version. So if you are on a budget, the digital version is available, but if you can swing for it, I just buy the textbook. Next is a health course, and both of my kids did Exploring Creation with Health and Nutrition. This is an Apologia high school level course. This course came with a textbook, and then we got the student workbooks for each of them. Now, the student workbook is nice because it has all of the questions in there and kind of guided note pages for your student to fill out as they're doing the reading assignments. The tests are also included in the workbook as well, and so you can choose to let them do that open book, or you could have them put the textbook away. Either way, but it is nice that it's all combined into just those two books for them. Now, this I felt was introductory to a ton of different topics. So it wasn't too in-depth in any one thing, but it was a good basic introduction into a lot of different topics. So it covered everything from mental health, temperament, emotions, sleep, interpersonal relationships, home safety, so like fire and electrical safety, diet, and exercise. Oh gosh, let's see what else. Basic introductions to different body systems, so the cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, infection and disease. There is a brief introduction into marriage, pregnancy, reproductive health, and kind of the physiology involved with pregnancy and birth. And so again, it was a good brief introduction to lots of different topics. My oldest is going to be doing a anatomy and physiology class next year, which will obviously get much more in-depth into these topics, but that is because she needs a more in-depth intro into those things in order to prepare for the college major that she thinks she is going to choose. But if you are looking for a good general health class, I felt like this was a good one. It took them the entire year to do, so we did like a full year credit for it. And if you're going to do it, I highly recommend going ahead and getting the student workbook, not only for the guided notes, but because the tests are included in that, and it just works really well to kind of just follow along and complete it through there. Now, 2 electives I credited my kids for that didn't involve any curriculum whatsoever are physical education, or PE, and music performance. So both of my kids played an instrument, and well, still play those instruments, but they were taking lessons actively for several years and doing different types of like music performances. And so what we did is we kind of counted the hours that they put in through their practice time, performance time, and those lessons, and we gave them credit for music performance for that. For physical education, while it's not mandatory in our state, most of our local schools do require a year of PE, and so we gave a credit based on the different sports and activities that they both are in. So both of them go to the gym or use our home gym to work out. Both of them play basketball, both of them play golf, and they are just very active kids. And so again, we just kind of looked at overall of the hours that we're putting in with those different sports and those different practices and use that in order to give them credit for PE. Logic is an elective that both of my kids have done, but they have done it in different ways with different curriculum. Now, my son took an introductory logic course at our local co-op, and this used the Master Books Introduction to Logic program. This is a course that I feel works better in a group setting. So either if you have multiple kids who are close in age that you can do this course with together, or if they can do it in a co-op setting, because logic is so much about discovering how to, come up with valid arguments, how to refute different fallacies, recognizing fallacies, really just understanding like good logical thinking. And learning that and practicing that works best when you have other people to talk with about it in order to like trade arguments back and forth, do examples back and forth, maybe pick a topic and be crafting different perspectives and arguments for or against that topic. And so I feel like the fact that he did it in a co-op setting was good. He did not find this particular curriculum all that fascinating. I think the discussions in class were his favorite part of it. Like the regular reading from the textbook, I think kind of bored him to death, to be honest. So he did get something out of it. You know, he recognizes certain types of fallacies in particular, because the Master Books course, it doesn't focus so much on teaching you how to make arguments. It teaches you more about different types of informal fallacies. I think the count was like 35 different fallacies it teaches you about. And then like those principles of logical thinking. I believe they might have more advanced courses if you wanted to learn more about actually crafting different types of arguments, but this course really focused more on the recognition of the different fallacies. Now, my oldest is also getting a logic credit, but she is getting it again through a combo course. So I mentioned earlier in the video that she's doing Government Econ Personal Finance from Guest Hollow. And when I started to get into this course with her, I noticed that they actually had included lots of different reading assignments that were on logical thinking, which kind of makes sense because, you know, as you're getting ready to participate in things like voting and local government and politics and understanding our economy and understanding like how things work, you kind of need to know how to think logically. You need to understand how to recognize different types of fallacies. And so the course has included some wonderful reading assignments. She's reading a book called The Fallacy Detective. She's been watching a series of videos that are introducing and showing you how to recognize different fallacies. And so we are giving her a logic credit for that. And again, that's all comboed into this one course. So all in all, that course has been like the best deal for both our time and our money, because she's getting credit for 4 different things from this one course. And I feel like it's just a much more engaging way to teach it than the logic course that my son did. So you can check out both. I'm going to have everything linked down below in the description box for you. But the way she's learning it works well for independent learning. The way he did it really would have worked best in that group setting. Botany is an elective that my daughter asked to do last year because she is just like her mama, completely obsessed with all things plant related. This course is another one from Guest Hollow, and like all of their other courses, they provide a list of different types of living books, online videos, reading activities, lots of recipes, utilizing different types of plants and fruits and vegetables and herbs. And it was a wonderful course. It was a wonderful course. I read every single thing that she did. I watched every single video that she did. And as somebody who's been an avid gardener for years, I learned so much. Now, you could turn this course into much more of a science course where you're focusing in more on exactly how it is that plants reproduce and how photosynthesis works and how different things are moving throughout the plants. We really kind of focused in more on learning more about various types of trees, different types of flowers, the history behind things like corn and sugar and coffee and tea and the impact that they have. In fact, she wrote a research paper for me all about coffee because she knows how much I love coffee, and she's like, yeah, I may have chosen that topic because I was sucking up to the teacher a little bit, but it was very good. It was a very good paper, but it was a awesome course. Like hands down, it's the favorite course that has been done. That she's done. She loved it. She loved reading all of the different things and learning all of the different things. She's still just as plant obsessed as she was then, except now she can tell me what I'm doing wrong with some of my gardening things. So it's a fantastic course. If you have a teen who likes plants, highly recommend the botany course from Guest Hollow. Now, prior to studying the Old Testament, we had spent a full year doing an apologetics course as our main focus in our Bible study. We used programs from Answers in Genesis. Now, at the time, they were running a special where they had grouped together a whole bunch of their courses into one big master class. And so it's actually a combination of several different online courses that they have. But I will link their website down below because you can purchase these different blocks of courses. They're designed to take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a semester to complete, and they'll cover topics such as arguments for creation, the flood, understanding the fossil record, arguing against evolution, cosmology, astronomy, dinosaurs, origin of man, like it covers so many different topics. So Answers in Genesis does teach about young earth theory. So just kind of be aware that if you aren't somebody who agrees with that topic, that is the perspective that they are teaching from. But they do it in such a great way. I mean, the course includes reading assignments, different articles and selections from books that are right there as part of the online course for you to read. And then there are lots of different videos you can watch. Some of them are more like graphic animated videos, and then some of them are kind of like almost like TED Talks where there's different presenters and they're providing information on research that has been done in these topics. So it's not just saying like, hey, this is how it is. It's like, here is the evidence for why it is how it is. And it's just really fascinating to hear those different speakers, to learn about those different topics. The reading can be kind of hefty at times. So this is probably better if you have an advanced reader or an older high school student, just so they can understand the reading. We did it when my son was an 8th grader and my daughter was a freshman. And I think part of the reason why it took us a little bit longer to get through it was because the reading was quite tough, and we had to kind of go through and like explain things and explain the meanings of different things and just help them understand that more. But I feel like if we had done this like now, they would have had a much easier time understanding it. But it is a really fantastic group of online apologetics courses. And again, they're kind of broken down into different topics now on their website. So when you go to the link that I'll have down below, you can look at the different ones and what they're covered. And they do recommend that you start with I think they call it like their 101, 102 course, and then they have different advanced courses after that. Introduction to Psychology was another course that both of my teens did. This is another course that came from Seven Sisters Homeschool, and the course was called Introduction to Psychology from a Christian Perspective. Again, it is a digital download, and so you get it as a PDF. We just printed off the textbook and put it in a binder. Similar to how the philosophy course that my daughter's currently taking is set up, there are questions that are included that go with each lesson. There are various enrichment activities you can do, and then there are tests that you can print off. Now, we actually opted to do almost all of the enrichment activities for the psychology course, both when my daughter did it and when my son did it. I felt like it had some really good activities for them to do. I mean, there were sleep logs, there were people studies, like where you were actually going and making observations. They included watching certain movies that talked about different psychological conditions, and then writing papers, kind of analyzing that and how it is that people are perceived in these movies, versus how they're perceived in real life. It was just a really good introductory course. Again, like the physiology or the philosophy course, you're not going to be an expert in psychology at the end of this. It is meant to introduce different topics. So you are learning about the brain and how it works. You're learning about the history of psychology. You're learning about abnormal psychology, counseling, different careers. And again, it's just a kind of a brief touch on all of the different topics. But it was an interesting one. I think both of my kids learned a lot from it. And they, in general, enjoyed it, especially the enrichment activities. And last but not least is foreign language. So in our homeschool, we have been studying German. Now, we have been studying German for a long time. We started way back in middle school because, well, one, I speak German, and that's what I studied through high school. And our family heritage, a lot of our family immigrated from Germany and Austria. Now, during the high school years, we have been using curriculum from CLET, and we have done German 1 and 2. And then at some point this year, we'll finish up with 2 and we'll move into their German 3 program. I like how they teach German in this program. It covers reading and writing and speaking. It has lots of different types of activities. There is an app that is free that includes audio files for us to listen to, video files for them to watch. The only caveat is that the teacher guide, the textbooks, the workbooks, everything is 100% in German. So if you do not speak German, you will not be able to teach from this. But if you do speak German, it is a fantastic curriculum to use. And I'm pretty sure that's all of them. I might be forgetting one or two, but I think I've covered all of the different ones that my kids have done. Now, if it seems like a big list, you have to remember that we started earning credits for high school back in 8th grade. So some of these courses were done several years ago. And so for my daughter, that's over the course of the past 4 years. And we have just had so much fun tackling lots of different topics, learning about different subjects. And I know we will be choosing some electives for next year for each of them, and I believe we will be crafting some electives of our own. And so when we kind of determine what subjects we're going to be doing next year, I will of course take you guys along in a video showing you how I'm pulling together things in order to create new electives. If you have favorite elective courses that your kids have done, please drop a comment down below. Let us know. What is it that they've studied? What curriculum did you use? Or did you use something instead of a formal curriculum to help teach that subject? I'm always looking for new ideas to run past my kids and see what they might be interested in exploring next. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up before you go. Consider subscribing so you can follow along with our homeschooling through high school journey. As always, appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy homeschooling!